Grandma said I was too pretty and needed to be taught a lesson. Emma's hair was chopped in secret while the adults laughed and whispered, "I call the police myself." I still remember the way Emma's eyes lit up when I told her we were going to the salon before Sophie's birthday party. My 11-year-old daughter had been asking for months to get her hair professionally styled, and I finally decided this was the perfect occasion. She sat so still in that chair, watching the stylist work magic with layers and gentle waves that framed her face beautifully. "Mommy, do I look pretty?" she asked, spinning around in the salon chair with pure joy radiating from her smile. "You look absolutely beautiful, sweetheart," I told her, and I meant every word. Emma had always been a stunning child, but that day she glowed with confidence that made my heart swell with pride. The stylist had created something special, soft layers that caught the light, framing her delicate features perfectly. Other customers in the salon kept glancing over, smiling at how radiant she looked. We spent another 20 minutes at the salon, with Emma asking the stylist questions about hair care and styling tips. She was so mature for her age, so genuinely interested in learning. I bought her a small bottle of the leave-in conditioner they'd used, and she clutched it like a treasure during our drive to Patricia's house. She kept reading the label aloud, memorizing the instructions. The drive to my sister Patricia's house felt different somehow. Emma kept checking herself in the passenger mirror, smoothing down her new haircut with careful fingers. She practiced different poses, tilting her head this way and that, preparing for the compliments she expected to receive. She was so excited to show her cousin Sophie and the rest of the family. The anticipation in her voice was infectious. "Do you think Sophie will like it?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine hope and excitement. "I think everyone will love it, honey," I assured her, though something in my gut felt uneasy. There had always been tension around Emma's natural beauty, subtle comments from my mother about how she needed to be more humble or not show off. But I pushed those thoughts away, focusing on my daughter's happiness. I should have recognized the warning signs when we arrived, and my mother Linda barely acknowledged Emma's appearance, giving only a tight-lipped nod before focusing entirely on Sophie. Patricia's greeting was equally cold, her eyes scanning Emma's hair with what I now recognize as pure jealousy. The way they both immediately turned away, whispering to each other, should have been my first red flag. The party seemed normal enough at first. Kids running around in the backyard, adults chatting on the patio, the usual family gathering chaos. Emma played with the other children, her new haircut bouncing as she laughed and ran. I caught several relatives commenting on how beautiful she looked, and each time I noticed my mother's expression growing darker. Patricia kept pulling Sophie aside, whispering in her ear. Sophie, usually so bubbly around Emma, seemed withdrawn and sullen. She kept staring at Emma's hair with what looked like sadness, then glancing at her mother with confusion. Even at 8 years old, she could sense the adult's strange energy surrounding her cousin's appearance. But after about an hour, I realized I hadn't seen Emma in a while. That maternal instinct kicked in, the one that tells you something's wrong even when you can't pinpoint what. I searched the backyard, checked the living room, asked the other kids. Nothing. My anxiety began climbing. I found her in Patricia's bathroom, sitting on the closed toilet seat with her head in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. When she looked up at me, my world stopped. Her beautiful hair, the hair we'd spent 2 hours perfecting just that morning, was butchered. Chunks missing, uneven lengths like someone had taken scissors and attacked it with pure malice. Pieces of her hair were scattered on the bathroom floor. "Emma, what happened?" I dropped to my knees in front of her, trying to keep the panic out of my voice while my hands gently touched what remained of her hair. Her whisper was so broken it barely registered. "Grandma said I was too pretty and making Sophie feel bad. She said I was being selfish and ruining the party." The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body trembling against mine while rage began building in my chest like a wildfire. My own mother had done this. My own sister had helped. They had taken scissors to my child's hair, to her confidence, to her trust in family. "Where are they now?" I asked, my voice deadly calm despite the storm raging inside me. "In the kitchen," Emma whispered. "They said not to tell you until after the party. They said you'd understand why they had to do it." I stood up, my hands shaking with fury I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just about hair. This was about my child's trust, her confidence, her belief that family meant safety. They had violated something sacred, and there would be consequences. Walking toward that kitchen, I knew everything was about to change forever. Walking into that kitchen, I found my mother Linda and sister Patricia casually sipping coffee like nothing had happened. The sight of their calm faces while my daughter sat destroyed in the bathroom ignited something primal in me. But as I opened my mouth to confront them, memories began flooding back, memories I'd spent years rationalizing and excusing. "What did you do to Emma?" I demanded, my voice barely controlled. Linda looked up with feigned innocence. "Oh, Sarah, don't be so dramatic. We just evened out her hair a little. She was making Sophie feel terrible about herself." Patricia nodded in agreement. "You know how sensitive Sophie is. Emma was practically flaunting that expensive haircut. It wasn't fair to the other children." Their words triggered a cascade of realizations that hit me like falling dominoes. This wasn't the first time Emma had been diminished for Sophie's benefit. This was just the most brutal escalation of a pattern that had been building for years. I remembered Emma's 7th birthday party, when my mother had insisted we celebrate it the same weekend as Sophie's dance recital. "Family should support each other," she'd said, but somehow Emma's birthday cake ended up forgotten in the kitchen while everyone watched Sophie perform. Emma had sat quietly in the corner, still in her party dress, watching her cousin receive all the attention on what should have been her special day. Then there was Christmas 2 years ago. Emma had been so excited about the art set she'd asked for, but when gift opening time came, Sophie received the deluxe version while Emma got a basic coloring book. "Sophie is more artistic," my mother had explained when I questioned it later. "Emma doesn't need fancy supplies to be happy." The family photos were perhaps the cruelest evidence. I started mentally cataloging years of holiday pictures where Emma was consistently positioned at the edges, partially hidden behind adults, while Sophie was always front and center. When I'd mentioned it once, Patricia had laughed it off. "Emma's just naturally shy. Sophie has more presence." But Emma wasn't shy. She was being systematically pushed into the background, taught that her role was to make others shine brighter. The birthday cards from my parents told the story 2 generic messages for Emma, while Sophie received lengthy, personalized notes about her special qualities and bright future. I remembered the Easter egg hunt when Emma was 9. She'd found the golden egg that contained a $50 prize, but my mother had quietly suggested she share it with Sophie because it would mean more to her. Emma had handed it over without complaint, already trained to sacrifice her joy for family peace. The school events were another pattern. My parents attended every one of Sophie's soccer games and dance recitals, but consistently found excuses to miss Emma's art shows and academic award ceremonies. "We're just so busy," they'd say, but somehow never too busy for Sophie's activities. Even the way they spoke about the girls revealed the favoritism. Sophie was special, talented, going places. Emma was sweet, quiet, easy to please. The subtle language of dismissal that I'd been too blind to see. The clothing differences were stark too. Sophie received name-brand outfits for every occasion, while Emma wore hand-me-downs or discount store finds. When I tried to dress Emma nicely for family gatherings, my mother would make pointed comments about trying too hard or showing off. Standing in that kitchen, I realized they'd been systematically breaking down my daughter's self-worth for years. Every small slight, every overlooked achievement, every time she was pushed aside for Sophie's benefit, it had all been building to this moment, where they felt entitled to physically assault her because she dared to look beautiful. "You've been doing this for years," I said, my voice growing stronger as the pattern became crystal clear. "You've been tearing Emma down to build Sophie up, and I was too blind to see it." Linda's mask slipped slightly. "Sophie needs more support. She's not naturally confident like Emma. So you decided to destroy Emma's confidence instead?" The rage in my voice made them both step back. "You took scissors to an 11-year-old's hair because she looked too pretty." Patricia's defensive tone revealed everything. "You always let Emma think she's better than everyone else. Someone had to teach her some humility." In that moment, I understood that this wasn't about hair or birthday parties or family photos. This was about 2 adults who had chosen to sacrifice one child's well-being to prop up another's ego. They had turned my daughter into a scapegoat for their own insecurities and failures. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of Emma's butchered hair, finally seeing clearly what I should have documented years ago. This pattern of abuse was ending today, and I was going to make sure there was evidence of what they'd done. "This is the last time you hurt my daughter," I said, my voice deadly calm. "The last time." The next morning, I sat in Detective Morrison's office with a folder full of evidence I'd spent the entire night compiling. Emma was at school, wearing a baseball cap to hide her butchered hair until we could get it professionally fixed. The detective, a woman in her mid-40s with kind but sharp eyes, listened intently as I laid out everything. "This wasn't a spontaneous act," I explained, spreading out the photos I'd taken. "Look at these pictures from the party. You can see my mother Linda holding scissors in the background of this shot, taken 20 minutes before I found Emma. They planned this." Detective Morrison examined the photos carefully. "And you're saying this is part of a larger pattern of abuse?" I opened my laptop and showed her the documentation I'd frantically assembled through the night. Screenshots of text messages from my mother criticizing Emma's appearance at family events. Photos spanning years showing Emma consistently marginalized in family pictures. Even birthday cards that revealed the stark difference in how the two girls were treated. "I've been blind to it," I admitted, my voice thick with guilt. I kept making excuses, thinking it was just normal family dynamics. But when I really looked at the evidence, the pattern is undeniable. The detective's expression grew more serious as she reviewed each piece of documentation. "This shows premeditation and a history of targeting your daughter specifically. In legal terms, what happened yesterday constitutes assault on a minor, and this pattern suggests ongoing psychological abuse." I had also brought Emma's school records, which told their own story. Her grades had been declining over the past 2 years, and her teacher had noted increasing anxiety and withdrawn behavior during family-related assignments. The school counselor had even flagged concerns about Emma's self-esteem, though I dismissed it at the time as typical pre-teen struggles. "We need to document Emma's current psychological state," Detective Morrison explained. "I'm going to refer you to Dr. Sarah Chen, a child psychologist who specializes in family trauma cases. Her evaluation will be crucial for building our case." That afternoon, I took Emma to Dr. Chen's office. Watching my daughter struggle to articulate her feelings about what happened broke my heart all over again. But Dr. Chen was skilled at drawing out the truth, and slowly, Emma began revealing the depth of damage that had been done. "I always thought I was the problem," Emma whispered during one session I was allowed to observe. "Grandma always said I needed to be more considerate of Sophie's feelings. I thought being pretty was selfish." Dr. Chen's notes would later reveal that Emma had been exhibiting classic signs of emotional abuse, self-blame, hypervigilance around family members, and a distorted sense of responsibility for others' emotions. The hair-cutting incident was just the physical manifestation of years of psychological manipulation. Meanwhile, I was building a legal case with the help of a family attorney recommended by Detective Morrison. We gathered witness statements from other family members who had observed the favoritism over the years. My cousin Rebecca provided a particularly damning account of last Christmas, when she'd watched my mother deliberately exclude Emma from family photos. "I always thought it was weird how they treated Emma differently," Rebecca told me over the phone, "but I didn't want to cause family drama by speaking up. I regret that now." The attorney explained that we had grounds for both criminal charges and a civil case. "The criminal charges focus on the assault itself," she said, "but the civil case allows us to address the pattern of emotional abuse and seek damages for the psychological harm." I also contacted Emma's school to inform them of the situation. The principal was supportive and agreed to provide additional counseling resources. They also implemented a safety plan to ensure that my mother and Patricia couldn't pick Emma up from school or attend school events without my explicit permission. The most challenging part was preparing Emma for what was coming. Dr. Chen helped us practice what Emma might say if she needed to testify. We role-played different scenarios, always emphasizing that none of this was her fault and that speaking the truth was the bravest thing she could do. "Your job isn't to protect the adults who hurt you," Dr. Chen explained to Emma. "Your job is to tell the truth so this never happens to you or any other child again." I spent hours that week photographing Emma's hair as it grew out, documenting the uneven lengths and the psychological impact of constantly having to hide under hats and scarves. Each photo was time-stamped and stored securely as evidence. The hardest part was the phone calls from other family members, trying to pressure me to work things out privately and not involve the police. My father called repeatedly, alternating between anger and pleading. "You're tearing this family apart over a haircut," he said during one particularly heated conversation. "No," I replied firmly. "Linda and Patricia tore this family apart when they decided to assault my child. I'm just making sure there are consequences." By the end of the week, I had built an ironclad case. Photos, witness statements, psychological evaluations, school records, and a clear timeline of escalating abuse. Detective Morrison assured me that the evidence was compelling and that charges would definitely be filed. "You've done everything right," she told me. "Your daughter is lucky to have a mother who's willing to fight for her." As I prepared for the confrontation that was coming, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: the power that comes from being fully prepared and absolutely certain you're doing the right thing. The moment I'd been preparing for arrived on a Tuesday morning when Detective Morrison called to inform me that the arrest warrants had been issued. My hands trembled as I listened to her explain the charges: assault on a minor, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and criminal harassment based on the pattern of psychological abuse we documented. "We're executing the warrants this afternoon," she said. "I wanted to give you advance notice so you could prepare Emma and ensure she's somewhere safe during the arrests." I arranged for Emma to stay with my friend Jessica, whose daughter was in Emma's class. Jessica had been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal, and her house felt like a sanctuary where Emma could just be a normal kid for a few hours. The first arrest happened at Patricia's workplace. Detective Morrison later told me that Patricia had been completely blindsided, insisting loudly that it was just a family disagreement, as her coworkers watched in shock. The reality of handcuffs and Miranda rights apparently shattered her delusion that this was something she could smooth over with apologies and excuses. My mother's arrest at her home was more dramatic. According to the police report, she became belligerent, screaming about how I was destroying the family over nothing, and demanding to know why the police were wasting time on a spoiled child's tantrum. Her complete lack of remorse, even in the face of criminal charges, validated every decision I'd made. The phone calls started within hours. My father was the first, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "How could you do this to your own family?" he demanded. "They're sitting in jail cells because you couldn't handle a little discipline." "Discipline?" I kept my voice steady despite the fury building inside me. "Dad, they held down an 11-year-old child and cut off her hair with scissors. That's not discipline, that's assault. You're being ridiculous. It's just hair. It grows back. It's not about the hair, and you know it. It's about the years of psychological abuse, the favoritism, the systematic destruction of Emma's self-worth. And the fact that you're calling it discipline tells me you were complicit in all of it." The conversation ended with him hanging up on me, but not before threatening to make sure the whole family knows what kind of daughter you really are. True to his word, the extended family pressure campaign began immediately. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly started calling, texting, and showing up at my house. The message was always the same: I was overreacting, families should handle things privately, and I was being cruel to pursue criminal charges. My Uncle Robert showed up at my door 3 days after the arrests, looking haggard and desperate. "Sarah, you have to drop these charges," he pleaded. "Linda is falling apart in there. She's an old woman who made a mistake." "A mistake?" I stood firm in my doorway, not inviting him in. "Uncle Robert, she planned this. We have photos of her with scissors before she even approached Emma. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment, it was a calculated assault on a child." "But she's family," he said, as if that magic word should erase everything. "So is Emma," I replied. "And Emma deserves a family that protects her, not one that traumatizes her." The most difficult call came from Sophie herself. Patricia had apparently coached her to call me, and the 8-year-old's confused voice broke my heart. "Aunt Sarah, why is my mommy in jail? She said you're mad about my birthday party." I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation would be crucial. "Sophie, sweetie, your mommy and grandma hurt Emma very badly. When adults hurt children, there are consequences. This isn't about you or your birthday party." "But Emma looked so pretty, and I felt ugly," Sophie whispered. "Oh, honey, you're beautiful exactly as you are. Emma looking pretty doesn't make you any less beautiful. That's something the adults should have taught you, not something they should have punished Emma for. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. My attorney had prepared me for what to expect, but nothing could have prepared me for seeing my mother and sister in orange jumpsuits, sitting across the courtroom with their own lawyers. Emma had to testify, and I watched with pride as my brave daughter clearly and calmly described what had happened. She spoke about the years of feeling, less than Sophie, about being told she was too much or showing off whenever she felt confident about herself. They said I was being selfish for looking pretty, Emma told the judge, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. But I just wanted to feel special for once. The judge's expression grew increasingly stern as Emma's testimony continued. When the defense attorney tried to minimize the incident as family discipline, the judge cut him off sharply. "Counselor, there is no universe in which forcibly cutting a child's hair constitutes appropriate discipline. This court takes assault on minors very seriously." Patricia's lawyer attempted to paint me as a vindictive daughter seeking revenge, but the evidence was overwhelming. Photos, witness statements, psychological evaluations, and Emma's own powerful testimony created an undeniable picture of systematic abuse culminating in physical assault. The judge ruled that both Linda and Patricia would remain in custody pending trial, with no contact orders protecting Emma. The courtroom erupted as my father shouted about justice being perverted and how I was destroying innocent people. But as I held Emma's hand walking out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the solid ground of knowing I had protected my child completely and without compromise. "Mommy, are they going to hurt me again?" Emma asked quietly. "No, sweetheart," I said firmly. "They will never hurt you again. I promise." 6 months later, Emma sits in my favorite salon chair, choosing her own haircut for the first time since the incident. She's decided on a stylish bob with subtle highlights, and her confidence radiates as she discusses options with the stylist. "I want something that makes me feel like me," she tells the stylist, and my heart swells with pride. Linda received 18 months in prison. Patricia got 12 months plus mandatory anger management. The restraining orders remain permanent. Emma thrives in therapy, her grades have improved dramatically, and she's joined the school art club where her talent is celebrated, not diminished. We've built a new chosen family with friends who value Emma exactly as she is. The toxic relatives who demanded I forgive and forget are no longer part of our lives. Emma's hair has grown back beautifully, but more importantly, so has her spirit. Some betrayals require legal boundaries, not family forgiveness, I tell other parents facing similar situations. Emma deserves a family that protects her light, not one that tries to dim it for others' comfort. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about ensuring the cycle stops here.